Alright, so here we have the Gboard 24, which is a prototype proof of concept project I've been working on recently. And the idea was to build a new type of instrument similar to a keyboard, but has music theory built in. And as you'll notice, unlike most keyboards, there are no black keys, or semitones if you will. And that's because those semitones are only really semitones in the C major scale. And if you're playing in a different scale, they'll have different meanings. So instead of having black keys here, the keys will actually change color themselves, and that's part of having the music theory built in. Now this is a kind of rough prototype, so for example you'll notice that the keys are kind of clicky. They're not perfectly smooth, and they're not perfectly even either, but it's just to get the idea out, just to see the proof of concept in action. So the construction could be a little bit better. I do want to go in one day and actually clean it up, but for now it is what it is. So let's turn it on. So it's hooked up to MIDI, which is a standard protocol since like the 80s. And the great thing about that is not only can you use a MIDI cable hooked up to USB and control a computer, you can also control classic hardware. So if you have some old like a Moog synthesizer, or I guess it's Moog, you could control your classic equipment with this controller. So standard MIDI, it takes power from the wall. I didn't build battery support into it yet. It does take a lot of amperage, so batteries wouldn't be that practical. But let's turn it on. So it goes through a little demo sequence, says welcome to Gboard 24, flashes through all the colors, and then it presents you with the C major scale. Now the idea is that each key on the piano has a unique color, and in this particular instance, C is pink. So right now we can see we have about 3 octaves worth of notes on, and these are all 3 of the pink ones are actually C. Alright, and then you can actually scroll that. So if we go in here, this is going to be the same one no matter what. This will always be 1 octave higher. Yet an octave higher again. And so you can kind of transpose, and the cool thing is that you can actually see the keys moving because they're colored. So, this is always going to be the same sound no matter where it is, but lower and then even lower. So each key has a unique color, but what's interesting is right now it's only showing the keys in C major. So if you listen to it really quickly, sorry, they're kind of sticky, but so that should sound like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, da, because that's just C major. Now, what's interesting is there's a few other things you can do. You can do pitch bend. Right. And the keyboard does support all 24 keys being pushed down at once, which is kind of cool. But that's just a cool aspect of MIDI in general. But what you can do is you can go in here and you can choose. Right now we're in key C major. If you push up, we're now in C sharp major, and now we are in D major, so it should sound like this. Now that should sound pretty similar to do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, da, because it's the same scale. It's the major scale, but it's actually in the key of D this time. So it sounds a little bit different than we heard before, but now it's actually in D major. But I'm going to go back down to C. Do that one more time. So it's similar, but going back down to C, we can change the scale now. So we have the Greek modes. So we started off in Ionian, but then we have Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, which is standard minor, Locrian, and harmonic minor. Then we have some interesting ones. We have the blues scale. And as you can see, as you were going through each of those scales, the keys were changing color. That's because it's taking the total piano's worth of keys and filtering out just the ones that belong in that scale. So here we have C again, because this is, after all, C blues. But then we have the other keys that would still make up the blues scale. So as soon as I play it, you'll recognize it. It should sound very bluesy. the keys are kind of sticky. So, and then you can go down an octave. So that's what C blue sounds like. We can also do, sorry, my thing is kind of needs to be glued on. We can also do gypsy. So that's C gypsy, and you know, because we're only in scale, it's easy to make chords and patterns like that. So. I don't know, just something I just came up with there. So the cool idea about this is that you don't have to memorize any keys or scales to be able to play in a key or scale. So if you only have a few keys and scale memorized from the songs you know, this will allow you to play any key, any scale, and just have it at your fingertips, you know? Yeah, so it's sticky, so it's not perfect, but that's the basic idea behind it. You can use it with any software that's compatible with MIDI. You can, showed you transpose, pitch bend. You can choose the velocity that the notes hit at when the computer receives them, and you can actually go in here and change the colors of any of the keys, so that if there's a particular color that you like, or maybe you know these pink and purple or these two greens are too similar, and you can't really tell the difference. I can tell that this one's lighter than this one. This one seems kind of dark and I don't know, like a Crayola green, and this one seems kind of light and faded out. But maybe for you, they're hard to tell the difference. You can actually go in here and change the colors of the two keys, so you can customize any of the colors and make it so that each of the keys is uniquely identifiable to you. And so yeah, that's it. It's been it took me about, I don't know, about 3-4 hard weeks of work making this, but I'm pretty happy with how it came out. It looks pretty clean on the outside, with the exception of the keys aren't perfectly flat and the buttons are really stiff. Like there's one key, I think it's that one, you have to hit it almost in the middle for it to register, whereas the other ones, you don't have to, you can hit it out here. What's weird is it's actually clicking like, but it wants it in the middle. So someday I will go in and replace those, make it better. I might also recut these keys, although that took a long time, but that's the basic idea behind the Gboard 24. 24 because it's 24 keys wide. And if you're in the major scale, or actually sorry, if you're in the chromatic scale, that would be 2 octaves. You'd have 12 and then 12. But if you're in any of the other scales, that fits about 3 octaves. So it's a decent number to have. One of the reasons why this takes up so much power is that each of these keys has 2 LEDs in them, but they're RGB LEDs because, you know, as you can see, they're capable of changing color. So each RGB LED is actually 3 LEDs in one. So you have 24 keys times 2 LEDs, so that's 48 LEDs, and each LED is actually 3 small LEDs in one. So that's whatever 48 times 3 is. That's like 150 something. So there is a lot of light, and a lot of each one of these LEDs also has a little processor in it. A little, not a full processor, but a little IC. So they're generally pretty power hungry. There's also a nice screen on here for telling you what you're doing. So overall, it takes a lot of power, which is why I didn't make it battery powered. But as a proof of concept, I'm very happy with how it came out. And one of my friends asked me if I could build it with any materials, what materials would I use and what would it look like? And since I have some 3D modeling background, I decided to build a virtual concept of the perfect instrument for myself. I think if this was actually in production, this would be the only thing that I make music with, because it's so much fun to be able to pick a sound, like a scale, and then just like experiment with inside those confines. And if you need to move it to a key for like, you know, a movement in the song, you can just go up and down and change the key that you're in. So yeah, I would really love it if I had like a very commercial version of this that works a little bit better than this prototype. But so yeah, I did that render, and that's what you'll see here. Basically, this is a little spin render, and yeah, so it was a very stressful project. I learned a lot of things about electrical engineering in this one. I had a lot of feats to overcome, a lot of glitches to debug with the electronics, but I was able to do it. So I'm pretty proud of how it came out despite its blemishes. And yeah, hopefully in the future I'll build a better one.